And I am looking at the IAM hands-on lab guide that you should have as well. So this lab is all about configuring IAM, the service that allows you to create authorization and permissions to use your AWS services. For time's sakes today, we're going to be just doing a subcomponent of these. Definitely invite you later today to continue and do the other steps that I'll be going over. I'll mention them, but just wanted to let you know, just in terms of sake and ease, I'm just going to highlight a few of the lab steps and then invite you to do the rest on your own. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create an IAM identity policy, and I wanted to talk about what that is. A policy is a document that kind of gives you the ability to control access. For me, it's easier to get into it, but this is a statement that includes an action, like a what, like, so allow or deny. So it's like, okay, yes, you can do this, or no, you can't do it. And then a principle, which is the who. Who is interesting here because it's kind of what it's applied to. And the principles here, we won't use in the policy we create because it's assumed, because it'll be created for a user, that's what the principle is. So when you associate this policy with the user, that then becomes the principle, the statement with the user, that is the principle. The next is the action, and this is the API call for all case purposes, saying, hey, I'm going to make this S3 GET request. That would be the API type of call that would be tied to this. And you can use wildcards to reference a grouping of calls. So potentially you could do an S3 wildcard to say, okay, I'm allowing all actions against S3 to occur. Wouldn't recommend doing that. I would recommend making it more granular, but you could say allow all S3 calls to occur. And then what resource would be applying to. So allow all S3 calls to this specific S3 bucket. And then finally, there would be a condition, which means that you could add some sort of condition or a circumstance. And we'll get into what those could be. It could be like an IP address, or if there's a tag associated with the username or the resource. And to see what that would look like here's an example of one. So you have a version, which is the kind of the version of not today's date, but the date of when the policy model was created, and then a statement. Here we're saying allow an action against all DynamoDB calls. So DynamoDB is a managed NoSQL offering from AWS. We're saying, okay, allow all these API calls, any DynamoDB API call, to occur to this specific DynamoDB table. And here, the interesting thing to break down this resource, it's an Amazon resource name. And it's kind of giving you the service. It's telling you what region it's involved in, the account number, and then the actual table name. So all those go into referencing what's going on. And this is allowing it for tables that occur in US West 2, or the Oregon region, and US East 1, the Virginia region. So let's look at creating a policy in the console. Before that, I'm just going to walk kind of slowly through this so that we kind of understand what we're doing here. So we're going to be creating an account, but before we do it, we're going to create the policy. This policy is going to have not a principal. The principal is going to be user, but we're going to allow this principal to interact with EC2 instances that share a tag with the Iem Users tag. And I'll explain that a little bit more as we dive into the actual policy. So looking here, this is the policy that we'll be creating. Is the SID is basically just a human readable name associated with it. So we're saying allowing a department access to EC2. We're allowing any access, any call for EC2 to any resource, but where the string equals, so this is a string equals, so we're saying that this EC2 resource tag is department equals the AWS principal tag, which in this case would be the EC2 user, also has a tag for department. So these two department tags need to have the same value. We're also giving the ability to say, okay, also allow describe, which is a subset of the EC2 APIs for all resources. So you can do anything if your tag, your department tag is the same between the EC2 resource and the user resource, but also just allow anybody that has this policy attached to them to describe it. Since it's kind of like a read or to get information about this. But then we also add here some denying. So it also includes denying, making sure that this user doesn't have the ability to edit their tags or edit EC2 tags. Cool, so let's go ahead and jump to the console. Okay, just wanted to confirm the name of that before we start. So again, we're in the console. I would still in EC2, I could go click IAM here. I can click services and just type IAM into the console. And we're going to be creating a policy. So clicking on this policy here, you can see different policies. And this is a great time for me to explain to you that AWS has predefined policies that kind of have typical use cases associated with them for various services. So if you need to give someone the ability, just looking down here, to interact with administer API gateway, you could create a policy and use the AWS managed policy instead of creating your own. The great thing about managed policies is that they can adapt over time. So if there's more API calls that get added to the service, AWS also updates these policies for you. The downside is that it might not be as granular or provide you the specific needs that you need for your use case. So that would require you to create your own. So there's a trade-off between the two. I see a combination of both usually used for that. So we're going to create a policy, and we're going to use the JSON editor because we have the policy already created for us. We just need to go ahead and copy it in from figure 2. This is figure 2. The department EC2 access policy. So copying that, going back to the editor and overwriting the whole document. And then let's go ahead and review that policy. Sometimes when you're editing your own, JSON is very finicky, so it might not necessarily work out, but that's why the review is there. Let's give it a name. It's suggesting a name here, and I want to make sure I get that right, and we'll call this department access EC2 access. So paste that in, description, immersion day, department access. And then let's go ahead and create that policy. Great. Cool. So I'm going to be skipping step 6 here for the sake of time, but it's something I definitely recommend you come back and take a look at. This is basically creating a policy that is part of the assume role capability so that you can give access to specific users based off of them assuming a policy temporarily, which is a great practice to potentially create a standard policy for just logging in and reviewing things, but potentially if you need to change things or make sure they go through another step saying, okay, if you assume this policy, create a ticket or do some sort of manual step to make sure that they understand the differences between their roles versus just maybe fat fingering something in their standard role is a great thing to do there. Or the other use case for this would be giving a third-party account the ability to assume a role in your account to temporarily interact with your account services. But just from time, we're going to skip this portion of it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a Iem user and attach them to this policy. Cool, so we're going to call it Anne, and we'll select console password, and then we'll go to permissions next. So jumping back to the Iem console, we were just in policy, so we created the policy, department EC2 access. We're clicking on users. We're going to add a user. Actually, already created this from last time, so let me just go ahead and delete that because that was from last time. We'll get back to you, Mary. Let's create a user, Anne, and let's give her console access. And here I'm just going to create a password here. And for me, it's just a little easier not to require the next password. Definitely would be a best practice to do that. And then we'll do permissions. Cool, so we're not going to add them to a group. That is something you could do. That's something we actually do in the contractor steps, is showing how you could do that. But we're going to attach an existing policy to that. So we'll look for department EC2 access. So that's basically, I'm filtering against all the policies. And since I know what I named this policy, I can just type that into the filter and then select that policy to attach. Cool. Now this is where it gets really cool, is we're going to add some tags to this user. And I want to make sure I get the tags correct. So we're going to add a tag of department, and then we're going to give it a value of HR. And this is referencing what we talked about in the policy. This tag is going to be used as part of the policy to allow permissions based off of the corresponding EC2 tag. So let's click review, and that looks great. And then we can create that user, and that user is created. It does give you the ability to download some information or email the information of the user. Potentially, if you've created access keys, this is when you'd want to download those or and to provide those to the end user to do that. But for this case, we're just going to be using the console, and we know the user here. Cool. The next step is telling me to repeat everything that we just did here, but we're going to use the Department of finance for this setup. So let me go ahead and do this. And this is Sally that you might have just saw me delete from a previous immersion day. So Sally is being created. I'm back in the console. I'm creating a new user. Again, console access, custom password. Just type something that you might remember. I'm turning off the reset, but do what I say, not as I do for this one. Don't say that. And then we're going to attach the same policy to Sally. Finance. So again, finance instead of HR for this one. Let's review it. And that looks cool. All right. So we can close this. We see our two users. They both have the department policy. Steps 9 and 10 are all about the grouping and the assumed roles that I definitely invite you to have a go later on today or when you have a chance. And this is just kind of explaining to us the policies that were created for us and the like. We're skipping group part 3, which creates a group, but again, those policies can just be attached to a group versus directly to the Iem user. All right, so we're going to do this one just to show the roles. This is section 4. We're going to create a role that allows EC2 instances to do a read-only policies. I don't want to do this one just because I think roles are a very powerful concept, and it's kind of something unique that people might not be familiar with here. So we're going to log in here and or go back to the console and select roles, and they'll show you kind of what I mean by this thing. So we're going to create a role associated with the EC2 service and give it a policy, just like we did for the users, and then we'll attach it, but this will be used for a EC2 instance versus an end user. So here we can go to roles. We're going to create a role. We're going to tie this one to a EC2 and then permissions. And we're looking for Amazon S3. I believe, yeah, it's a read-only access one, just confirming that policy. So again, this is a managed AWS policy that gives you read-only access to S3 buckets. And then tags, I don't believe we need to do any tags for this, but let's just confirm. We can just go ahead and create that rule. Let me copy that. I might have had this one already created. And I just want to make sure that it can't end in a white space. All right, create role. All right, so we've created a role. So a cool thing here is we can look at this role. We can click on it up there, or you could go into the roles and search for it. Here you can see that the maximum duration for this role is 1 hour. So you can change that depending on how long you want the role to be available for the different entities that might be adopting it. I'm going to be skipping 8, but this would be just how you could create a role to create permission for those contractors to assume that role to do the same thing, but that would take a little bit of time that we don't have today, but just wanted to kind of explain what that one's doing. So steps 7, 8, 9, 10 here have some tags associated with it and the like. That's just allowing, say, for the example of giving that contractor ability to interact with your Ec2 instances. So here's a little diagram that talks about the different policies and users that were created. We talked about Ann and Sally. We didn't do the contractors. We did do an Ec2 role, read-only or S3 thing, a policy associated with that. What I'm going to show now is we're going to launch an Ec2 instance again. Going through the same steps, but here we're going to create a instance with 2 tags, and those tags are going to be referenced as well. So going back to EC2 in the console, I recommend sometimes creating multiple tabs. You can do that by doing your Option or Control key, depending on what platform you're using, opening it up in a different window so you can go back to it if need be. We'll go ahead and launch an instance. Selecting the Amazon 2 instance, and while you're doing this, while this is happening, I'll talk a little bit more. Is that you'll be creating your own images over time, and you'll just use these for initial setup or configuration. Like customize them as you need be. We'll go ahead and launch this into our immersion day VPC in the private subnet. For this lab, it doesn't really matter if it's in the public or private. We're just going to be talking about interacting with it through the console. Storage, again, use the default. Then here we're going to add some tags. So the first one is name, and we'll name this capital HR. And then we'll do a department tag, which is referenced in the policy, and that's a lowercase HR. And I just want to confirm that. Department, lowercase, name, uppercase. Cool. Keeping that track. Security group, we'll just use the existing default security group. Again, we're not going to be interacting with this directly onto the box, so we can just launch it as such. Again, we don't need a key pair, but we can use the existing one to get it to launch. All right, so we're launching an instance. And it's there. While it's launching, I'm going to launch a second instance. Again, Amazon machine, Linux 2, a T2 micro instance. I'll put in the VPC. I'll put this one in the public one just for fun. Not a big issue here. Big thing that we're concerned about here is just showcasing the and then this is the tag that will be referenced, and I believe definitely, again, I'm just going to confirm because I hate making mistakes in front of everybody. Yep. So capital case for finance, and then lowercase finance for department. And here I'm going to do something just for fun, just to show you guys something while we're done. you can assign it a role. So here I'm assigning this EC2 instance a IAM role, and this is the one that we just created, the EC2 S3 read only. We're not going to test it out, but that's kind of how that configuration works. You can assign a role to an instance as easily as that. And again, the console is just a UI interface to these, so you can do it all, through APIs or SDKs or launch configurations. And I'll just use an existing security group of the default. We won't be accessing the box. We're just going to be interacting with it through the console. Cool. And launching the instance. So now we'll have our instances here. And I deselect the filter. And we have the public one we made earlier that we did the ping test. And the like. So cool. Next thing I'm going to do is confirm, but we're probably going to, we're going to go back to identity and access management and test what we can do. So the first thing we're going to do is log out, and then we're going to be logging back in as Anne, and I'm going to show you how that can be done. So I'm just going to go back to my IAM console page here, go back to my dashboard, and at the top of the dashboard you can see a URL. I'm going to copy that to my clipboard, and then I'm going to close these other tabs, and then I'm going to log out. And then I'm going to paste that the URL. Yours probably will have some sort of other account identifier. I have my account alias is my last name. Click console, log in, and here instead of using my information, I'm going to use Anne and log in as that Iem username. I won't save that. So now you can see that I am logged in as Anne. I'm in the North Virginia region, but here is my account information for that. I'm going to go to EC2. And I'm going to look at my running instances. Cool. And I can see this one's still initializing because we just booted it up, but we can see HR and we can see finance. And we gave Anne the ability to interact with the permissions to do whatever she liked to interact with the EC2 instances if they have the tag of HR. So if I went to finance here, unselect that one, and or I could go to this one as well, and I try to stop it, I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to say, okay, because it's probably still initializing. So let me go to this other one first and try to stop that. And it's telling me that I am not authorized to perform this operation. Yay, exactly what we expected because it doesn't have the HR tag. I can stop the HR instance though, because it does have that tag. And of course, there's an issue. Let me it's not that you're not authorized, so there might be another issue occurring right now. Let me go ahead and just log off of Anne and log in as in Sally, again using that console link that I had. And Sally is the username. Going back to EC2, running instances. Looking at, now we're on Sally. Sally is part of finance, not HR. So if I go to stop the HR instance, there's some internal error that's occurring. I'm not sure why, but if I click stop, it will also, if I go to actions, stop. For this one that doesn't have an either tag, we'll get the well, let me go ahead and try this just to do the terminate. Okay, well, there might be an issue occurring that is out of my control right now. So I'm going to go ahead and end the lab, but that's what should have occurred. We saw it occur once in terms of the not authorization message, but it looks like there's either an issue with my console occurring right now that I need to troubleshoot. But all in case purposes, that's what would happen. And then they would have options to stop the instances that were associated with their policies. Hopefully it's working in your account and it's just something going on with mine right now. I'm going to close my browser really quick and see if that fixes the issue. Are there any questions about the lab or the concepts behind it? Okay, so Annie should have permission to stop.